Welcome to another episode of Flashback Tracks from the Past.
A few weeks ago, it was all about the pirates, the crackers, and the wares dudes. But we must also look at the things the gaming companies did to keep your grubby little hands off the games until you forked up the dough. So, for this episode, this is the story of maps, broken diskettes, and just how bad losing the manual could be. Basic Views Pulse. Am I dancing? So let's talk about games and protections. Well, the ways to protect the games were many, and when the crackers found a way around them, the industry invented new ways to make the games you bought work for you, but making it impossible for you to copy them to your friends. The frustration in the industry was enormous, and the mechanisms they threw in the mix were therefore many. Today we'll check some of them out and talk about code wheels, the pesky manual, the map you could not live without, online protections and how they could make you suffer, and of course the genius of Nintendo's key and lock chips. Siren, The Last Ballad. Okay, let's go through the list then. First up is messing with the technology itself. It's not just about computers. The industry found ways to make VHS cassettes impossible to copy. Remember, it's an analog format, so obviously it's not that hard to make it happen. On diskettes, they would often write them in, an incorrect way that would cause them to become corrupt but still work. Any program trying to copy them would not be able to properly reproduce the disks with the flaws. And the game, when it started, checked for the, expected irregularities and refused to work if they were not there. The crackers removed this check and also repackaged the game so it could be copied. That is how we got Eagle Software, Triad, Fairlight and Razer 1911, the famous cracker groups. Arcane Toaster, Dandelion. In order to hear the next song, you need to consult your podcast manual, page 34, paragraph 3, and type in the second word in the paragraph in the input field below. Yep, the dreaded manual protections. If you had a cracked game, they were removed or would accept any input and still let you play. If you actually paid for the game, you'd better not lose that manual or the game would not work. Sid Meier's Pirates had a number of novel ideas on how to make this work. You see, if you failed the check, the game would still let you play, but your career as a captain would be poor, as you would be given very unfavorable stats for your character. The game even warned you about it. Malcolm Headlock. Nintendo's key and lock chip is a marvel to behold. It's one of the most powerful copy protections ever devised. At least I think so. It also protected the NES from running non-approved games. You see, each cartridge had a key chip, and the NES had a lock chip that would accept a proper key. This system is simple by today's standard, but it was impossible to bypass directly until 2006. Some shady game developers would try to cheat the system by using a sacrificial official game and piggyback their crappy game to them. Vincenzo, Lost in Transponation. One of the previous episodes of this show was about computer piracy, and it was called Dial a Pirate. That is a reference to the code wheel, called just that, from the game Monkey Island. It was a wheel where you rotated it to match up a pirate's lower and upper part of their heads to prove that you bought the game. It was a smart move, as it fit the humorous style of the game and still worked. The crackers, of course, removed the need for that as well. K. Jose, staring danger in the eye. I have done many episodes of this podcast, and we've spoken about some of those protections previously. Well, this one has been a favorite for me to talk about, and it's Sid Meier's Pirates yet again. That game had a map. It was a physical one, and it was too big for my dad's Xerox machine, and purposely dark and with contrast levels that would make copies hard to read. Believe me, I tried this a number of times. No crackers could really fix this, as it was before computers could show large pictures and run the game at the same time, so there. Ida, funky lesbians. Let's move into more modern times. The digital right management era, to be specific. At this time, the internet was there, and every time you started a game, it would validate the game against the server. Many painful stories are told when the users could not even start the games they bought, as the servers were down or malfunctioning. and Sony's infamous rootkit that pretty much hacked your Windows installation to make it hide stuff. Yeah, well, it made it clear that the only winner were those that illegally copied the game and thus didn't have to contend with that. Well, I got a story about that. Lamer strikes again, OPL Omega. Somewhere in the mid-noughties, I bought a weird game called Sacred 2, or as I call it, Scared 2. It, just as its predecessor, had to be the buggiest games ever developed. Me and a friend played two-player co-op over my network, mostly to laugh at the many weird glitches that would make our characters explode without a warning or freeze for no apparent reason. But the copy protection was horrible. I switched to XP, Windows XP, 64-bit as soon as I got my AMD X2. And the game itself would still work, but the copy protection would not. The solution? I downloaded the cracked and thus illegal version, and it worked. Hey, don't judge. I did pay for the game, remember? NIM, Life's Hardships. And now we have almost arrived in modern times. In 2012, Microsoft had a service where you could buy and download music to your Zune. You know, Microsoft's ill-fated iPod ripoff. In 2015, Microsoft shut the project down, and on March 12th, 2017, the site closed. Sad as it was, for the, 2 people that still used the Zune, it also meant that the songs they previously bought would no longer play. Clowns to the left and jokers to the right, here I am in the middle, with a brick of a media player. Send me an email if you want a free doorstop. Man V of Sands, Evening Glow. Alright, I was just joking. I never had a Zune. I am not that unfortunate son of never mind. So, as I said earlier, all DRM make the honest user suffer the most. They have to spin their wheel, sift through their coffee-stained manuals, blow on the cartridges, choose their operating systems to match their copyright protections, or maybe, sacrifice a goat. And the lamers downloading stuff illegally, Oh, no problems for them, except the frequent malware and spyware that comes along for the ride. Marvin and Voice, Revelation. Today the whole debate may be dead. I mean, do you still download movies and MP3s? We have Spotify, HBO and Netflix, or why not YouTube or Google Music? If you like listening to books, you can try Audible or some other service. Podcasts are everywhere. Well, when this is done, I will put one of my Beatles vinyl records on my record player and laugh at it all. Mistra of Brainstorm and Nectarine, Zico. Alright, enough DRM talk. Let's talk demo parties. Again? Yes, I can't stop talking about them, you see. But data men tell no tales. That's the slogan of the Edison Party of 2021 that runs on the 9th of July and ends on the 11th. It will be online and a physical meeting for a select group of 50 people, which means you have to be quick if you want to be there in person. But the sales of the on-site tickets opens in a few weeks. The online tickets are 50 Swedish kronas a pop. That's about $5, and they can be bought on edisonparty.com right here, right now. NIM, Meridian Highway. NIM is a frequent flyer this episode. There is not much to add right now, but next week we will see less activity as we approach vacation time. But as I said in the last 2 episodes, the podcast will continue. There will be less of my live broadcasts, but the station stays on 24/7. NIM, re-entry. And in the end of this show, as it is now, I, DJ Demon, is calling it a day. This show will soon be available as a podcast. Again, thanks for listening. Shaman, Melting Sunbeam. This is the Arcade Radio Network and the show that is known to this world as Flashback. Tracks from the past, and it's also a podcast, so you can be listening on your podcast player or on your radio. Remember that if you want to say something, if you want to contact us, we are available on the email address radio@arcade.net or on discord.io/TRN. Nim, resuscitation please. Yeah, if you're saying that, you're either a zombie, an undead, or a ghost. Anyway, last track for today. It will be Static Art and Soft Vibes. See you in a week. The Arcade Radio Network, your leader in tracked music.